Very cool. Well, we'll be watching that.
Yeah.
So the next thing I wanted to ask you guys about is, I know you were in Toronto recently, big developments for Ross there.
Yeah.
And now you're coming out to Edmonton. What's going on for you guys in Canada right now? What's the deal?
Yeah, so we started at the University of Toronto. There's a lot of a great AI community there, as well as here in Edmonton. But when we initially started Ross, we realized that we had to go to the Valley to kind of get things up and running, get support and funding and things of that sort. But we always had an eye to go back to Toronto to get back into our networks, because a lot of the people that were interested in the same things, the same technologies, the same science that we were there. So it was a strategic move for us to come back to Toronto, to be able to capitalize on all of the benefits, the intellectual brain power there in Toronto, and as well as Montreal and also Edmonton as well. So it was really to just be at the center of things. A lot of the press is talks a lot about the AI stuff that's going on in the U.S., but really it's the source of it is here in Canada. So
yeah, I mean, I was a little bit shocked to discover how closely connected the University of Alberta was to the DeepMind people and the AlphaGo people.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Go fan. I've been playing Go for 17 years, and I watch that stuff all the time. I'm always like wondering, until recently, when was it going to happen?
Yeah.
And then to discover that it was done by people who live 20 minutes down the road from me, it's astonishing how little even people in Edmonton understand about the level of expertise that we have.
Yeah.
Wandering around this town. It's excellent.
It's enormous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Well, we're extremely glad to have you here. So I know that Ross, as of right now, doesn't deal with Canadian case law.
That's right. We trained originally with Canadian case law. Our first product was in Canadian case law. But then, in addition to the fact that the resources were in the Valley, as a young company, you also have to go just where there's a larger market. So we found out very quickly that there was more lawyers in the state of California or the state of New York than all of Canada. And so that kind of made us think that we had to do that. And especially early days, you have to do everything you can do to make sure that it's successful. As everyone, the old adage is that, 99 startups fail for every one that succeeds.
Give yourself the best possible chance.
So that's what we did. We went out there and we're doing that. I think, we've been really lucky to tie back into the Canadian ecosystem. We opened up a lot of our engineering out of Toronto. The mayor of Toronto cut the ribbon there, which was fabulous, to get that support. And now we're excited to be in Edmonton. Randy's joined the team as an advisor. So some of those brilliant minds that you mentioned that were just 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
So they may not be as smart as they appear.
Yeah. The old adage is
anyone withhold judgment.
Yeah. Anyone who wants me in their club, I won't say.
Yeah, I would never be a member of a club that would have me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're happy to be working with Randy now, and I think we're hitting a good stride at the company. It's still very early.
Yeah.
But all this to say, we don't do Canadian law yet. But
well, there's a bunch of people in this room who eventually, because I imagine eventually it'll get there.
Yeah.
So for the time that it does, what's your pitch for what Ross is?
Oh, yeah.
Why you should pay for it? Why it's better than the alternatives? Oh, and in the spirit of how Ross works.
Yeah.
You have to give an answer that you're 96% confident about, and you have
That's
to
good.
4 seconds.
That's perfect. But then I'll get everyone to tell me how they like the answer.
Exactly. We'll use that to reprogram.
Classic dilemma. You either get a knock on your door from a senior partner who gives you a really kind of sparse explanation of what they need you to do and research.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, you're at a small firm where I was, and a client tells you their issue, and you're like, yeah, I definitely do that, right? But you're like, okay, I think there's definitely tort in there, I think.
Yeah. That's threshold law.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Walked over my threshold.
Yeah.
I do that law.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the classic way to deal with that is you obviously boot up one of the big two legal research providers. You type your queries in keywords using Boolean. I think, that's what I was trained on. Obviously, we've tried out some natural language stuff that they've had. We've also learned very quickly that it looked like natural language, but it wasn't really that useful, and then we all reverted back to keyword and Boolean. And that was the same thing that you saw even with search engines, with like, Ask Jeeves. I remember like booting up Ask Jeeves and thinking everything was gonna, like, it was like the game is over. Like, Ask Jeeves is here, like it's over. Like, I can just ask any question I want. But then you asked, and then it was like not so good, right? So I think a lot of the advances that we've seen have allowed us to start building in a system where you actually can express yourself in natural language. So the key difference is, instead of having a system find words and try to serve you up thousands of results and force the human lawyer to search through that and find that information, what we do is have you express your question fully formed, including jurisdiction, so you don't even have to filter. It'll automatically apply that. You can go by dates, etc. You ask your question, and it brings you back the passages of law that best answer your question. And so that's kind of our core offering, is what we did there. And then we've obviously built on additional capabilities. So once our system was able to identify and have a good QA system, we've been able to explore other things like having, when you use keywords in Boolean, you get all those thousands of results back. So it's very hard for a system to be able to keep you up to date with changes in the law.
Right.
So what we've been
You
able
don't know which one of those you cared about.
Exactly. It's there's so much noise. So if you limit that noise, you can start doing neat things like, if you're researching something and you click a button in ROS, and you say, I want to be kept abreast of this, it's going to read new cases if they're released, and then pre-highlight them all the most important passages and ping you and say, hey, you've been researching in this area, this case might be helpful for you. And so then obviously we then build in feedback mechanisms so that our users can say whether this is helpful or not. I think we always joke when we talk to other machine learning companies as well, it's like, well, our users aren't as expressive, like if it's helpful or not. And we're like, come to law, They're very expressive, right? So that's been, at the beginning, it was kind of a tough obstacle. I think the other thing about law is your joke, when you said it's 96%, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these models will never go to 100%, right? And so even explaining that concept to lawyers and letting them know that these systems will be able to assist you, they're not going to be able to replace you. And even in the example, I didn't say that Ross then has a conversation with your client, drafts everything up, and then you just sit at home, have a beer. So it's just about really streamlining information retrieval, and now we're doing some neat things around information organization. So being able to do some targeted summaries of cases where you ask a question and it puts together some information that best answers your question from the case. We're building on our initial successes and moving as fast as we can.
That's very